Hello and welcome back to another episode of Everybody Hates Your Brand. In this one, we talk to Rob Pellow, Executive Technical Director at the independent CRM agency Armadillo, based out of Bristol in the UK. Rob is an expert in the somewhat labyrinthine and opaque world of Martech, and we talk today about that world, its current obsession with integrating AI, and where he thinks the future is going. I hope you enjoy it. So, as I said in the intro, we're delighted to be joined by a fellow Rob in Rob Pellow, which rhymed. I didn't realise that was going to happen. But anyway, welcome to the podcast, Rob.
Thanks, mate.
Regular listeners will know that we start every podcast with what I call the credibility section. We have listeners from all around the world, and so it's important to essentially give an introduction to yourself and your career and all that kind of stuff, so people know who you are. So, if you wouldn't mind giving us a bit of a rundown of who you are, your background, and what you're currently doing, please.
Sure. I'm not sure credibility is the right word to use for me. I'm not sure I've ever had any of that. My career is a bit of a windy one. It's useful to tell people that I started. Instead of going to university, I chose a different path and was both a ice cream man and a bingo caller at the same time, though not doing the same job at exactly the same moment. And then I spent about 11 years working at Dyson everywhere, and from in the call centre through to being a web developer and a bit of design, and then ended up leading their digital production in Chicago, where I was for a couple of years, which was where I kind of fell into CRM, which I no one has ever convinced me that they've deliberately started working in CRM. I think it's a mistake we've all made and then sort of liked it. So I moved from there back to the UK and worked for a tech company. I worked for an ESP called Adestra, which was my first kind of real in-depth tech role. Mm-hmm. And then met James and some guys from Armadillo while I was doing that, and kind of flirted for a little while. And then I've worked at Armadillo for the last 7.5-ish years in various roles, sort of all leading up to being the executive technical director, which is what I am now, which is probably just, rather than having lots of promotions, it's just a better definition of what I was always doing.
Fair enough. And for those who don't know, Armadillo is I'd say one of the UK's largest independent CRM agencies, based down in Bristol in the southwest of England. Some big old clients walk through those doors, Disney's and P&O Cruises and all sorts of nationwide, all sorts of characters. And you get involved with pretty much most of the accounts, from what I know. And it's also interesting, I think, that one of the things that Armadillo focuses a lot on and falls on your lap a lot is Martech. People who buy a lot of Martech and then have to try and figure out what they're going to do with said Martech. And what's fascinating, as I've kind of been researching you for the interview, is how quickly Martech is evolving, and especially in the last, since I suppose ChatGPT's first hit the world. There's a stat here that 77% of new Martech products added in the last 12 months were quote unquote AI native, whatever that means. We've got generative AI speeding up creative development. We've got predictive AI helping build out customer journeys and recommend next best actions. But there's this whole thing about, like I said, this period where the tech is growing really quickly. So Martech is growing sort of exponentially, and complexity is growing exponentially, but organizations change logarithmically. They change much slower. So one of the things that I'm interested in from your perspective and your experience is, what are the determinants in your experience as to whether an organization can adopt the benefits of AI at pace, or whether they're going to struggle? What would be the kind of key determinants?
That was a long and windy question with some of the longest
that's what I do.
I've ever heard.
It's my style.
I think I might just rewind a little bit,
sure,
and talk about, because you're right, and AI has sped everything up, but I think the question that it's answering in its most effective and most desirable state is not a new question. It is an age-old problem, and Armadillo kind of became that center of helping people with their Martech because it was the kind of unasked question in every pitch and in every brief that we were answering. and we are a group of very excitable nerds at Armadillo, whether that's in the creative team, the strategic teams, obviously the tech team, obviously. But what we really care about is making stuff work. Like, we want to do really cool, brand new, innovative, exciting things. But all of us have this kind of shared kryptonite of, if we suggest it, it's got to be doable, because anybody can put a cool creative idea that you can't do in front of someone. It takes a lot more effort to put something that is actually believable and provably doable. And I think that then attracts a subset of people to the business, whether they're employees or whether they're clients. And so we've become this kind of nexus of all of that great strategic and creative thought around that kind of Martech activation. So getting your platform stood up and talking. And the reason I think that this is this is related to your question and not just me waxing lyrical about where I work is that what people are actually talking about in the main, and this is a big general statement I'm making, but in the main, what people are talking about is achieving more scale. So AI is another filter for achieving that scale, and it's a really, really effective one if you ask it the right questions. But that's been true of tech forever. I've worked both in and around those tech companies for a long time, and you can sell on features, and people buy on features sometimes because it looks shiny and it looks exciting. But if you don't know how you're going to use it, you never will. And we quite often talk to people about how when we start working with them, which tends to be just after they've bought and paid for the tech, they've turned it didn't immediately make them £1 million.
Yep.
And they go, well, but we've used some of these features. What they're actually trying to do is get their MVP of what they were doing before, but in a new tool. You won't get scale or innovation or progression from doing that. What you need to do is think about why you're going to use it. And it's exactly the same with AI. A member of the senior team at Armadillo, who you and I know very well, has been a very big proponent of using AI. But and has I've had many conversations with her where she's just desperate for me to be using it, and she does know how to use AI. She's been very effective for herself. But the key with AI, like with any tools, is you've got to discover that kind of watershed moment, that bit that makes you go, oh my God, I get it. And then when you do that, and you can start building on that, and you start building out more use cases. And I think the reason that AI is sticking around more so than some of the other kind of flash buzzwords that have propagated out through the industry over the last 10 years is because more and more people are having those kind of eureka moments of understanding what it means to them. Also, when you turn up in a meeting and you start talking about agentic AI, everyone who doesn't know what agentic AI goes, that guy knows about AI. So there is a bit of cred at the moment. I said to someone the other day, it's a bit like the Y2K period of some of our lives, where you could make a load of money if you knew how to reset a date on a computer. Yes. And I think that it's the same thing now. If you know how to make use of AI, then you can make a killing for the next couple of years, and then everyone's just going to know how to do it, and it will be just normal.
Yes.
So your question around like how quickly people are going to adopt it, it's the same as how quickly are people ready to embrace that change. How ready is an company to make use of scale? Because if you haven't got your content store in order, if you haven't got your audiences in order, your data in order, if you don't know how you're going to create a load of new imagery, if you haven't got like good data, then it doesn't matter if you put AI on top, because it won't do anything. So the kind of reassuring thing, I think, for people who are scared about how to use AI or just don't really know how to use AI within that kind of big industry world is if you're already taking steps to kind of productionize the way you do things, if you're making more content than you need in just the next email, and you're making that content live longer and be more dynamic and have lots of good data points that can personalize it as it goes, then you're doing all of the exact same things you'd be doing if you were investigating like a big decisioning engine that was going to take over making all of your marketing decisions for your audience.
Yeah, I think you made a couple of really good points there, and one that I think people are seduced into buying the kit on a promise of what this thing could be without really thinking about why they need it in the first place, I think. And I think you're absolutely right. The data point just keeps coming up time and time and time and time again. A lot of these great use cases are assuming that your transactional, behavioral, first party, whatever data sources you've got are all in a nice, beautiful spot, and you can do something with them. And I think that's a really interesting point. So from your perspective, then, what do you see as the role of Armadillo in helping? Is it a navigation thing? Is it how are you helping your clients at the moment? What's the kind of role that Armadillo is taking
Navigational is a nice word, actually,
there?
because I think it's taking the form of several different things, and we're working with people all the way through from the kind of the people with their hands on the keyboards that are getting campaigns out right now up to the kind of C-suite, to understand it at a kind of organizational layer. And so it really sort of depends on the client. I don't think there's a client where we're not having at least some conversations, and some of them are really ready to start embracing it. We've been working on trying to plot people onto a kind of tech and AI and data maturity curve. Like, how ready are you to get
Mm.
going? And I would say even the people that we're working with who have a very, very detailed plan, who have invested in exactly the right best in class kind of tech, and have kind of organizational mandates from the top to the bottom on what people should be doing, are still in their relative infancy in terms of deploying it. And actually, some of the smaller companies that we work with will get to something quicker because they've got less change management to get
Yeah.
through. But it's almost a one-to-one conversation with every single person that's involved to help them understand what their role looks like in that world, and where the opportunities are for them, but also just like, well, how do you productionize it? We've all been slavishly adhering to our campaign plan, which, if you're a really, really organized business, might be a year long, and you can kind of plot everything that's going to happen for that year, who's going to get what, and you've probably got another layer of kind of automated, real-time, maybe reactive journeys that are happening to help nudge people along on a very set path. And actually embracing this is sort of ripping all of that up. And that's unnerving. It's exciting if you're excited by it, but even if you're excited by it, there's a leap between that world that we're in now, where you're going, right, well, this is going to be the content for that thing, and these panels will be dynamic based on this thing we know. So we might talk to you about a red car versus a blue car or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And now I don't even necessarily know what I'm going to talk to you about, because something else is going to decide that in this moment, based on the data that I've got, based on the content I've got access to, and based on some business rules that you've given me, I think this is the next best thing I should talk to them about. But I'm going to test it against a load of other stuff. And that's just totally different. So I think we're playing a lot of different roles in all of those different conversations to help people think about what that means for them individually, what that means for their teams, and what it means at an organizational level.
I think that organizational level and the cultural piece is massive. I mean, we've had conversations with brands where it's, okay, I'm responsible for the sales of X product, and I have counterparts in product teams who are also responsible for sales in those products. And one of my KPIs, or my core business KPIs, is sell more of that. And the only levers I have really are CRM based levers, because I'm probably, unless I'm not going to get the budget for big TV, for example, it's more, most of it day to day is from a CRM sort of perspective. And all of a sudden, let's call it Skynet, comes along and says, actually, if we're going to optimize based on these constraints and this outcome, you're going to have a lot fewer sales of this. We're going to talk about this a lot less than that, because that makes way much more money, right? Simplistic argument. All of a sudden now, well, those KPIs aren't quote unquote fair. So I think the cultural piece must be an interesting one to kind of navigate with people as they sort of work through things like that and KPIs.
Yeah. Well, and actually, we had a really great session with one of our clients, and it was their kind of what you might class as a personalization team. So you could call it CRM, but it's a bit wider than CRM. and also with their COO.
Mm-hmm.
And we brought to life a few different ways that the world could look if you fast forwarded a year and then you implemented these hypothetical decisioning engines and you start to think about what a end customer might experience. And that's all very exciting. And then you get to the bit that you're talking about because, well, it doesn't matter how big your database is because that doesn't mean anything and hasn't for a long time. It doesn't matter how many emails or push messages or whatever else you send because that's just a metric of brand activity. It's not actually telling you anything about the impact you had on a customer's life. So you've got to change the rules. You can't say, well, we're going to use AI and we're going to let the machines make the decisions. But if you don't sell enough of your product that you're responsible for or your brand that you're responsible for, because you're that's not your power. Your power and your role suddenly becomes, well, how do I create content for all of these loads of different scenarios that someone might be in? Because even if the machine decides it's going to sell my product, I'm going to buy that product for lots and lots of different reasons. And this is sort of what I mean. This is not new. I remember a really good friend of mine who I used to work with would always talk to her customers about someone buying skin cream. Now, there are, without even thinking too hard about it, 5 or 6 different reasons that someone could buy skin cream. They might always buy that skin cream. It might be the first time they bought that skin cream, but they always buy skin cream. They've never bought skin cream before for themselves. They're buying it for a friend, and ad infinitum. So just saying it's time to buy that skin cream again because the majority of your audience buy it every 3 months is a meaningless message to most of those people. So I now need to create a load of different content to help someone understand why, when the machine decides they should be talked to about skin cream again, what should I say to them? And that's before you start overlaying, more emotional scenarios. And so, as well as that kind of consultative approach that we're taking, I think that's the other side of that, is that kind of brand strategy and creative layer over. Well, okay, your entire business now believes in using AI or tech. I mean, let's just call it tech to make decisions, to fire out the message through whatever channel it might be, et cetera, et cetera. Now, how do you remain a brand? Because if everyone turns on those same machines, like those are table stakes. Everybody with any budget has got access to one of those tech platforms, as you said at the beginning. 77% now have AI baked into the platform. So it's not that they're connecting to a third-party thing. They're building net new, or probably a white labeling, a ChatGPT, or whatever it is. We've all got access to that. Like I could go out and buy some Martech on my budget of like a tenner a month, and I'd get some AI.
Yeah.
So if we all just turn that on, we're all going to send the same message. We're all going to have the same decisions. We're all going to have the same customers. So we're all just going to say the same thing. So the next layer then is, well, what role does brand play in that? Because something has got to maintain that. Something's got to get in front of me, and it's got to still got to make me feel something. It can't just be mega relevant because I happen to need that product right now. It's got to make me feel something about it.
Well, I think there's a couple of things to take out of that. One, I think, is thinking about the different types of AI. So the predictive element of it, that's not the maths that the AI is doing is not new. It's, regression stuff. Back at Vodafone in 2007, we did this kind of stuff where it was like, okay, we've got 17 different things we could put in front of this customer. What's the right thing to do? And each outcome had a probability attached to it, and each outcome had a value attached to it. And we would get what the tech was back then, but would do the maths for us. But it was a very manual process, and you would have to manually run it, manually upload data, and it would only run off certain things. Whereas now I think it's more about, it's the same maths, just more complicated and faster and real time and done quicker rather than once a week. But that again, that's not necessarily new. It's just better, faster, more. I think the interesting point that you talk about is the creative layer and the generative part of it. And from your perspective, I know you're not head of creative, but you are.
I thought you were going to say I wasn't creative.
Some of these questions, no. Is the discussions, your other discussions, more you're having more around the kind of predictive AI stuff, or is generative coming into conversations as well?
I think well, it's same answer as before. It depends on the client. We are
Right.
having those conversations. the The generative world is an interesting one because that's where the kind of IP and the legal teams get very very tight around the posterior when you start thinking about generative, because the natural conclusion to the predictive path is you're not going to know who's seen what,
Yeah.
but that's sort of safe because you know what they might see. But even then, like if you create me 10,000 combinations of, well, it could be this text and this image and this button and this link and this channel and this, like you don't need very many variables before you get 10,000 combos, and no one's going to sign that off. And then you unleash the world of generative AI, where I don't even know what it is that someone said.
Mm.
Forget about combinations, just think about one
Yeah.
piece of copy. And it is a really fascinating world. I know it is slightly behind in its adoption, all of the
Mm.
other stuff, because the other stuff, like I say, it's scary in some ways, but it's a kind of known scary, and the
Yeah.
generative is the unknown scary. There are places where it's happening, and I can see it happening, and there are people live with it. There's a company that we work with a lot called Jacquard. Some people will remember them as Phrasey. They've been in the game for quite a long time, actually, at least 10 or so years, where they've been doing AI. Subject lines was what Phrasey was all about, and it's evolved a lot over
Mm.
the last couple of years. And the product is a really mature and great product. It's still using lots of LLMs, but it's using lots of other brand layers and lots of language or linguistic science behind it to make it really good for marketing. And they have a product which is not only generating subject lines which are brand approved in the loose sense, like they're coming from a brand approved place, but it's doing that at scale on a one-to-one basis. So in an automation journey, you and I will not only have dynamic subject lines because they are relevant to me and you differently, and they might include some data points about us, but they're also doing some of that stuff we were talking about before. Like they're talking to you about one product and me about another, but they're also referencing other third party or first party data points at the same time in real time. So there are companies that are live with them with the biggest scale where no one is seeing any of the copylines. They have no idea what they have said to people.
Wow.
And that does take a bit of a moment to go,
Mm.
that's a world.
Yeah. Because Skynet said so isn't a plausible defense.
No,
Do you know what I mean? And
you're right.
that idea that, if you send something to somebody that, I don't know, causes offense or is shares something that shouldn't have happened or is sharing data, like,
You're
yeah.
right. But that does happen now.
Mm.
Like how many times have you had an email saying, "Oops, we didn't mean to send that. We sent you the wrong offer. We sent you the wrong thing." How many stories do you read where people were outraged at? I mean, we've just had the outrage over Cracker Barrel in the US daring to
Hmm.
change a logo.
Yeah.
So, and that's deliberately devil's advocate because it is
Yeah.
obviously different. But what's interesting with particularly with these more mature tech platforms is that they're not naive. They have to sell this to people,
Yeah.
and they know, and they're not selling it to mum and pop grocery store. They're selling it to big enterprise businesses, and they're not by any means the only people that are doing that. Nearly every um, CEP, customer engagement platform, is building or has built some level of AI copywriter.
Mm.
Braze have just launched a very compelling, from a feature set point of view, copywriter, which pertains to do the same thing as Jacquard. I suspect it will be a bit before they reach that same level of data
Hmm.
maturity, but they're massive, so they'll get there quick. And Einstein in Salesforce, etc., etc. There are lots of these things coming online, and they are doing that due diligence. They are setting the brand guidelines. They are setting the acceptable tones. They are setting the all of those different boundaries that you would expect to be in place. Because if we don't start being brave, and I say we as an entire group of marketers, then we could just go, well, look, all of this predictive stuff, all of this machine learning and decision engine stuff, that's good enough. We'll stick there. But I think if it's really going to take over, then we all sort of have to get behind it at some point. Like I say, I haven't seen an image generator yet that can really prove to me that it can do exactly what I need. Like, that's not to say that it won't happen very soon. I mean, those videos of Will Smith eating spaghetti, why Will Smith, why spaghetti, we'll never know. But you can see in such a ridiculously short time span how quickly that tech has come on. But also, like, how many prompts you need to put behind that, and how many prompts you need to put behind VO before you get those incredibly lifelike videos that you just wouldn't spot are AI. But how you build the consistency, I mean, that's the one thing I've learned individually about using AI, because we've used it a lot at Armadillo for ourselves as we try and work out, well, what's the best way of talking to our clients about it? How are we using it? How are we embedding? I'm going to say it. How are we embedding agentic AI into our workflows and actually making meaningful change? It's easy to have the idea. It's easy to get a pretty workable prototype. It's really fucking hard to get it to be consistent and give you the answer you expect every single time. And when it's image generation, anyone who's kind of got it to create an image and then got it to create an image without changing anything and see how it just degrades into an amorphous blob over about 100 things, that's the problem at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's really, really expensive, both from a kind of natural resources and from a literal cost point of view to do at scale. But it won't take long. I mean, the like I say, copy's pretty much there. Like, it's on the edge of adoption, but it's there. And the reason that all of these tech companies are investing so much money in it is because it's there and there's a demand for it and people are using it.
Yeah. Has anybody in your travels had an ethical, what's the word, sort of counterpoint to it? Does anyone kind of go, I just don't think it's right? Do you know what I mean?
My daughter, my 16-year-old, insanely intelligent and creative daughter, has all the issues with it. And we quite often, as I kind of gently try and give her use cases that I think would help, it will vehemently not use it. I don't think I've come across a client who doesn't, because I think that would have to be a figurehead of a business to take that stand, and I'm sure there are. I'm sure they exist. I'm not sure how I feel about the generative stuff. Like, I do subscribe to the I want my AI to do my dishes so I can be creative, not the other way around. I do want that, but when I've got a pitch to do and my entire dev team are busy on client work, and all of a sudden I've got to dust off my coding chops, but now I've got basically another dev who can just sit with me and code with me, because I know exactly what I want to achieve. I just can't remember some important bits on how to do it, which I used to just Google anyway, because all devs do. No one knows anything. Now I've got someone that can get me to a very, very workable prototype within a quarter of the time that it would have taken me to find someone's resource to help me do that.
So we've talked about pace of change, and we know that tech, especially for big companies, big tech stack decisions are expensive and time consuming. I remember once I was working in Australia, and I was talking to somebody who was on the C-suite of a big bank, and this is not necessarily AI related, but their banking system was, this is hyperbole now, but was basically running on like 1970s IBM mainframes. And it made building out apps and better customer experience really difficult, because it was just sitting on this archaic back end, and trying to build on that was really difficult. He said, but nobody will make the decision to spend billions of dollars to rip that out and put something new in, because the lifespan of a C-suite person is 3 years. This won't pay back until God knows when. So in a world where things are changing quickly, how do you, as a business, decide what you're to future-proof yourself? How can you try and do that?
I think I definitely have, within the last 10 years worked with businesses that are like that. I mean, there were bits of Dyson that were like that.
Mm.
I'm sure it's all bells and whistles now, but for a technologically advanced company, it sometimes felt like we were running out of literal steam to power the machines. And I think there needs to be a business level of choice around how they move forward on that. So when you're thinking about what that future looks like now, because I think you're right, people want to make immediate change. People want to come in and go, oh, I know some stuff. One of the things they tend to do is they tend to take tech and agencies, but definitely tech with them. So when they turn up and they go, oh my God, this that we're using is a piece of shit. I mean, I literally had this conversation with someone this week who isn't a client, but is a CMO and has worked in a lot of places. And she turned up at this new business that she's working in. And it's not a small business. Like, it's a big company that work with some of the biggest institutions in the world. And she described this CRM platform that required 4 different teams to do a thing to an audience before it could get into there, before they could send an email.
Wow.
And she basically got there and went, absolutely fucking not. We need a better platform. And she had a preference, but she still did an open and objective RFP, and then they chose the thing. So I think that's one way, is you know what it can look like.
Mm-hmm.
The more interesting side of it, I think, is at the moment there's a lot of tech which is relatively unproven, even when it's backed by a proven place. So let's talk about AI again, because we haven't mentioned it enough. But AI decisioning is the tech du jour, and everybody wants a piece of that pie. So it's the world of those tech things is just really blending out at the moment. We've had the world of your Adobes and your Salesforces that took over everything and bought everything, and with these behemoths, and then a whole bunch of new whippersnapper contenders went, no, we're going to be best in class. We're going to do this thing. We're going to do it really well, and we're going to be all open source and cloud based. You can plug whatever you want in. And then they saw other companies making money doing other things.
Yeah.
Oh, but we could make that money. We'll do it differently. And then they've done exactly the same thing, and now they're buying all these things. And decisioning engines are the same thing. So there's a pedigree of someone like Pega, who have been in the game for 10 plus, well, no, more than 10 years, but they've been around for a long time, playing in a space that nobody was playing in. And they've like Frazee and Jacquard, they've kind of got to a maturity at a much higher level than those guys to be able to do all of the things. But it's really, really expensive, and you have to really know that that's what you want, and you have to be comfortable you're going to let it take over everything. Then you come to layer down, and then there's 3 or 4 of these companies like Braze and High Touch and Treasure Data and mParticle and AIM, and there's a whole bunch of them that are building in this layer, or they're buying companies that have this layer. And it all kind of looks good. But at some point, people are just they can't sit around and wait for all of these things to be proven over a number of years, because otherwise they're not going to be playing the game. So if you are a business that's interested in AI decisioning, you are going to have to put your eggs in that basket, and you're going to have to wait for a while and see what happens. Like, obviously, you'll do stuff in that time. But I don't know. I couldn't tell you. We've spent a lot of time researching these companies, and some of them are easier to see because it's a platform you can touch and poke and do stuff and experiment with. And some of them are black boxes, and they work with a ton of incredible data scientists to do very, very good things. But I couldn't tell you with absolute certainty which one's right, and I can only help point you in the direction. I don't know that anyone really will know the answer to which of these things it's worth investing in. I mean, it's not going to be the end of the world. Like, people use shit tech all the time, and they go, this isn't working very well, we'll buy some more. But it is just, we're in a bit of a weird liminal space where the market's requirements have changed, but nobody really knows what the actual requirements are. They've got a pretty good idea in some cases. They've got a fairly rough idea in others, and they're going to have to make some quick decisions on some stuff that's not quite that proven yet. So yeah, I don't envy the people that are having to make some of those decisions.
CTOs or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, let's talk about it from a fun perspective. What's the coolest innovation or the coolest thing you've seen in the last, I don't know, 6, 12 months, whatever it might be? What's the one thing you've gone, that's fucking awesome?
I genuinely have been blown away by some of the stuff I've seen just experimenting with the platforms that are available to us all.
Mm-hmm.
When you do cool shit with them, like the I mentioned we have been playing with agentic AI, and that's a bit like magic.
Mm-hmm.
If you're coding something and your coding platform that you're using says you probably want to update this line next, if you just hit tab, I'll do that for you. And suddenly, even those micro interactions of the stuff that wouldn't have taken a couple of minutes maybe to do some stuff, where it's predicting what it thinks I need to do and then making a really good attempt at it without even me asking to go and do coding for it. It's just doing that, and it's remembering that I needed that. So the next time I do something similar, it's already ahead of me.
Yeah.
Like that's sort of a magic moment. And then when you take it further, and we've been working with it to help us speed up some of our processes. And when I say speed up some of our processes, we've taken things that maybe would have taken literally a couple of days and got to a point where we consistently can, with a single prompt, execute it within 5 seconds without taking a single piece of our creative brain energy away from us. Like
Wow.
that might, like, it won't cost someone their job. We're not going to fire someone because of that, but I might not replace someone because of that in 6 months' time
Mm.
if someone were to leave. And we might go, oh no, well, there's another job lost to AI. But that job is copying and pasting something from a spreadsheet into a HTML file where
Mm.
it's that. I mean, that's a shit job to do. And also, you're going to make mistakes because you're going to paste it in the wrong place, but you can't tell because it's in a language you don't speak in amongst some really complicated HTML.
Mm-hmm.
Why would anyone want to do that job? That's not a job that anyone wants to do. It goes back to all of the different innovations over the years. Like, don't worry about taking that job away, as
Mm.
long as the bit that's left is the really cool creative bit that only a human can do, because it requires innovation and it requires new thinking, which AI doesn't do. So we're coming up to DMA award season, and I'm judging again
Mm.
this year. And actually, I'm judging the category Innovation for Good, and
Mm.
that feels like a really good place to be. And maybe we should have done this this interview the other side of that, and I could have talked about something. But like, I genuinely I get very excited about people using tech in really effective ways. Like,
Yeah.
seeing something done better, seeing something done in a more thought-provoking and clever way really is exciting. And it's only really when you get under the skin of campaigns that you get to see that. It's one of the reasons I love being part of the DMA Awards,
Mm-hmm.
is that I'm looking at more than just the kind of customer outcome bit. The customer outcome bit is cool, and there is always cool stuff. There's always great ads. There's always well executed ads. There's always fun ideas done really well. But like that's everyone has that capability. It's
Mm.
when you get under the skin and you see how people actually did bring that to life.
Yeah.
That's when I think it's really, really cool. Actually, okay, here's an even better answer though.
Go on.
It's outside the marketing world. I took part last week in recording music documentary for a company that funds research. And one of the projects that they'd researched, which was used in this piece of music that we recorded, was an app called Beat Blocks, which is a good name for an app anyway. And it's an app where you use the phone's camera to point at a plain Lego board, and then you use Lego bricks to build your beats or your music in the same way that you would drag stuff onto
Yeah.
samples in Ableton or Logic or
Yeah.
whatever. And then he takes it around schools and he helps kids make music with Lego blocks. And it's
That's
the
crazy.
coolest thing I've seen in a really long time.
That's very cool. That's very cool. Well, look, I'm conscious of time, so let's finish in a traditional way that an Everybody Hates Your Brand podcast finishes, which is the concept of the Everybody Hates Your Brand Room 101. So, for those of you who are not aware of what Room 101 is, comes from the book 1984. It's basically the room with your deepest, most horrible fear in it. We don't do it that way. We do it the BBC Two game show way, which is guests suggest things that they would like to be locked away into room 101 forever and ever, things that annoy them, rile them, anger them, or just generally piss them off. So, what would you like to recommend goes into the Everybody Hates Your Brand room 101?
Now, I'm concerned for two things here. One is I don't think this is an original answer.
Go on.
I'm certain someone else will have said it, which is maybe the same as one. But that is, I think, as the entire concept of LinkedIn.
Do you know what? No one said that.
Well,
so in 60, well, we only had Everybody Hates Your Brand room 101, maybe 30 episodes or so, but nobody in those episodes has said that yet.
Then I mean that amazes me. But like, no, don't get me wrong. I think professional networking is useful, and I've made some good contacts through LinkedIn. And maybe what I ought to do is just refine what I'm actually putting in, because it is a really useful tool. And actually, there are some great uses of things like using it for recruitment.
Yes.
Driving awareness of stuff. Like it has a really good theoretical purpose. It is the use of it from people who believe that they need to be perceived in a particular way. It's the professional equivalent of only posting beautiful sunset pictures with your family and not the absolute sheer chaos that is 99% of your family life.
And also the number of AI, to your point, we were talking about earlier with AI copy, the number of obviously AI copy written posts that are all saying the same thing. At some point, the serpent is going to eat its tail.
Rob. Yeah, well, that is the thing that people have to realise about it, as well as watching out for end dashes. Have original thought and help it put it in a format that you need it. Like I know not everyone is great at putting their thoughts into very like easily bite-sizable chunks or really succinct thoughts. But don't say I need to say something about this and then just take whatever it gives you.
Don't abdicate the responsibility of thought.
Yes, that's a
lovely way of putting it. But like that's great. Well, look, man, thank you very much for spending the time to come and talk to us, talk to me, talk to the audience. So we will use the word us. Much appreciate you coming on. Thanks for spending the time.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, I hope you found that useful and entertaining. It is great to get a perspective like Rob's on what is really a very complex topic. Apologies for the quality of my voice in places where we're having some mic issues on the day, but hopefully it wasn't too distracting. I am working on scheduling the next few guests, but if you do want more content from me, I would recommend you check out the weekly stream I do with my partner in business and in life, Jane Kleinhans, on her Choice Hacking YouTube channel. We discuss a few interesting business topics each week and give our takes on them, so please come and hang out. They run at 6 p.m. London time every Friday, and I would love to see you there. And remember, take great care and be vigilant out there.